This is Tamara from shelfaddiction.com, and welcome to another special live episode. We're here live today reviewing and recapping the latest episode of The Walking Dead Season 8. Whether you're listening live via Shelf Addiction or Spreaker, leave us a comment. We would love to hear your thoughts on last night's episode. If you enjoy live episodes, go ahead and share this on Twitter right now. Show your support by rating the podcast and leaving a positive review on Apple Podcast or your listening app of choice. Joining me today is PCS co-host, fellow TV junkie, and indie author Lisa Orban. If you're listening to this episode after we're off the air, you can still leave a comment. You can also find me on Twitter at Shelf Addiction. You can also find Lisa on Twitter at Lisa Orban Author. If you'd like to email in feedback or questions, feel free to reach out to me at info@shelfaddiction.com or leave an internet voice message via SpeakPipe. The link is below in the show notes. Hey, lady, what's up?
Oh, I'm enjoying the weather more than I was yesterday. It's warmed up.
Me too. Is it sunny there? It's so sunny here.
It is a sunny day out. I'm so happy.
Yes. It's like it's actually feeling like, let me knock on wood somewhere, because it's actually feeling like winter might be coming to a close.
I know. Spring is starting to sprung.
Yeah, spring has sprung. Is that the...
So I'm all happy.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so speaking of being happy, Did last night's episode make you happy? That's the question.
Happy's not the right. I was so sad.
Oh, was it? Well,
I really did like. So all those little flashes that we were seeing, of, the settlement and Rick being older and everything else. Now we find out that was not from Rick. That was all Carl imagining, the best that they could be. Yeah. That was what he has been keeping in his mind this whole time, of the goal that he has been working towards. And so that was kind of, I with that kind of with that reveal, I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. I like it, Yeah,
I liked it better after it was revealed that it was Carl and not Rick. But, and that also kind of explained why some of the people that were deceased were in the visions, because he didn't know.
Right.
But I was kind of disgruntled when I saw Negan in the vision. I'm like, okay. And, I wonder if it was any kind of foreshadowing at all, or if it was just kind of like, hey.
I don't think it was any kind of foreshadowing. I think what it was is Carl he has grown so much, and he was starting to become this very, and I don't want to say optimistic, but hopeful person who thought, this is all got to end somewhere. We can't just keep killing people. We can't discard people. We have, that's why he went and got Saeed and brought him in. Mm-hmm. But I think he just, in his heart, he knows that it wasn't going to be, with Negan there at the end. But I think that was just kind of an extension of his hope. He was, at some point in time, that would be a future that, that instead of all these groups fighting and striving and, being mean to each other, that they could reach that kind of a thing. And I don't think it was Negan specifically. I think he was kind of the archetype for, any other group that they might, leader of any other group they might run into. We can enfold them into our community. We can make them a part of it.
Well, I hope that's what it means, because, I'm hearing people rumble about them, the showrunners maybe hanging on to, Negan's character beyond this episode, this season, even though the war, quote unquote, may be over. But honestly, I'm kind of tired of Negan's character. I'm just keeping it real. I'm kind of tired of him. And even if he somehow transforms and they keep him on and he's somewhat of a different character, he's still going to be the same, So I hope that's not the case. I'm kind of ready for that to be done, and let's move on and bring some new, fresh blood into the group, fresh ideas. Let's change things up a little bit. That's right. Yeah. That's where I'm at with it.
Now, I do predict, because Negan legitimately did like Carl, okay? He kind of almost had that strange fatherly pride in Carl. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you could even see, like, when Carl was up on the wall and the, from the season ender, before the break, that exchange between the two of them. And, Negan was like, do you want to die?
Yeah.
and it's so much more poignant now that we know that he knew he was going to die. And he's like, no, I don't want to die, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
And so I really think, I think when Negan finds out that Carl is gone, I think it is actually going to stun him for a second or two.
Maybe.
Not as much as, as say Rick or any of those others, but I do think it's going to have an effect on Negan. I don't think it's going to cause him to change his ways. I don't think it's going to make him any less Negan-ish, but I do believe it might give Rick's group an advantage that they may not have had before with Negan.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do know the way that Carl went out. I feel that it's going to stabilize Rick. I don't think he's going to fly off in a depression or a rage. I feel like the way all those discussions they had as he was dying, I feel like that's going to, level him off instead of, sitting him off the handle. So I'm hoping that turns him into more of the leader that he was at one point. At one point things were going really well for the group.
Yeah. Well, and Carl even mentioned, like, when they were at the prison, he had put aside his gun and, he had become a farmer. And,
see, I wouldn't go that far. There's a limit to everything, okay? Like, look, to get that, this is how I feel, to get that utopia that you want, you have to take certain precautions, right?
Oh,
There's no, I don't understand the complete opposites of the spectrum. Either you're murder, death, kill, or you're farmer, kumbaya, let's do yoga. I'm like, okay, where's the middle? I'm just saying
that, but there was that point where Rick, he did pull himself back from the brink, from the shoot first, ask questions later, whereas they had been more inclusive and were allowing more people into their group, and they had actually built up a decent sized community. And I do know that the falling of the prison and the whole thing with the governor and all their groups getting scattered to the point where they've never completely regrouped, did have an effect on Rick, and he never wanted that to happen again. And I think the big difference we have right now is even though Alexandria has technically fallen, they are regrouping. They have a place to regroup to, and that's Hilltop.
Yeah. So,
although I'm kind of thinking they almost might be better off if they went to the Kingdom, because now that they've cleared out the Kingdom, it's a little more fortified. That's just my opinion, but
Okay, so I have to say one thing. You know how we are all about, like, continuity, me and you. We kind of see things that should not be. And, okay, Carl surviving as long as he did and not turning as long as he did just did not seem true to me. Like, I remember when Sasha died, she was not alive for, it seemed like he was alive a whole day and half a night or something before he turned.
Except Sasha took drugs. Remember, she took those things. I mean, she killed herself.
Yes, but other people turned quickly too. And if you think about where his bite was, it wasn't on an extremity like an arm or a foot. It was like in his gut where, the poison could reach his system fast. It just didn't make sense to me that he was alive for, so long before he turned or died, being that where that cut was.
Yeah, but I mean, it was only actually about 24 hours.
I know, it still just seemed long to me.
Yeah, but it wasn't, because he went out that morning, because you have to remember, this was all just in one day. Yeah, he went out that morning, he got Saeed, he came back, and that's when he found out that Michonne was not there, and so he was disappointed. So he wrote all of his letters, he spent the day, and he got Saeed settled in, and then Negan was there that afternoon, the city fell that night, and then he made it to maybe dawn.
Yeah, so I don't think he should have gotten that far. I just don't. I'm sorry. Like, I understand why you did it. He needed to say his goodbyes to everyone. They wanted to try to make it poignant and feel it. So I know they dragged it on for that. But just thinking about how other people have turned and things like that, it just didn't ring true to me that it took him so long to turn.
I think part of it is, though, is while it wasn't an extremity, neither was it a fatal in and of it. If it was a bite from an actual human or an animal, it might have gotten infected, but it wasn't a death blow. But a lot of the other bites that you have, I mean, we're talking about, having their throats ripped out or a limb ripped out or something to that effect. So it was a fatal wound that they received with the bite, and well, I mean, and if you think about it, at the very beginning, because I was thinking back on this when we were, while I was watching the scene with Carl, how far they had come, when I think it was probably right around the end of first season, and they were in the caravan, and one of their members had been hiding the fact that he had a bite, and was starting to get sick, and then they ended up tying him to a tree and giving him a gun, So, but he actually had that bite, and it was similar to the one that Carl had because it was right there in the midsection. But he lasted for a little over a day before he was found out, and they tied him up to the tree. So that, I mean,
maybe also Carl's young. I don't know. Maybe it was a couple different factors, but still, like, I understand what you're saying, and all those things could be possible. But just off the rip, like, that was one thing that kind of stood out to me. I don't know. I also kind of don't know how I felt about them literally taking this entire episode to say goodbye to Carl's character. Like, okay, yes, Carl was a good character. The actor, Chandler Riggs, he did a pretty good job with Carl most of the time. Of course, he is a child actor, so he developed as he got older and all that. But I just don't know how I feel. I feel like I'm just going to just put it out there. That episode was meh to me. I wanted more. I didn't really feel it. Like, my heart wasn't breaking when he died. I didn't feel it like I wanted to feel it. Overall, I wasn't like, wow, that was a great returning episode. It had me feel all the feels. I didn't get what I thought I wanted after 2 months off.
I actually really enjoyed it. And, a lot of, with all the major characters, they end up getting, they all had their send-off, in a certain way. I mean, Glenn got almost a half a season as part of his, his send-off there at the end when he finally did die. So, I mean, I really don't see that this one episode being more or less dedicated to Carl was a terrible thing. And I enjoyed it. And it wasn't entirely centered on him because we also had what was going on with Morgan and him back into, death kill mode.
Oh my God. Speaking of Morgan, I honestly feel like that thing with him ripping out that guy's guts. I'm like, oh my God. And I feel like this might be the catalyst to send him into that, I must go and find myself. I must leave.
Oh yeah. I'm waiting. I am sure that this, because I don't think it was so much him ripping the guts out of the person. I think it was the little kid, taking the death blow. And, he killed my brother. And I think that was his wake up moment. He went, uh-oh. Yeah. Because if we turned our children into death machines, what is the point of our future? We don't have one, and even Rick, I mean, up until this point, everything Rick has done has been for Carl, to give Carl the best future he could possibly do. And to a certain extent, Judith, but he doesn't Carl is his son, and he knows that it's his son. So I don't think he has quite that close a connection with Judith. At least not, he might now, but it was always for Carl. He wanted, he had been grooming him to take over the leadership of the group and to be the leader that that the future needed. And now with Carl's death, I think it's kind of even more snapped into his place. We do need to build a safe community. We do need to do this for not just my son, but all of, there's Judith and there's Gracie and, Maggie's new baby coming. So I mean, there's children being born, and if we're going to have a future, it can't be one of constant warfare. Not if they're going to survive. There's not enough of them to survive constant warfare.
Well, in this kind of situation, I feel like three scenarios. Either the end game, because I've heard people kind of debate over how much longer this series can run. 2 seasons, 1 season. It seems like the sweet spot that everyone is saying is maybe 2 more seasons. Because I mean, either all of the living people will eventually die, right, and everyone's dead, or somehow, some way, there's a cure. Or I guess you just continue as long as you can until people just die, which is still, because there's no cure. So eventually everyone will die. I am wondering, how long this can go. Even with, the future and all of that, everyone is still infected. Remember, everyone is infected.
I know. But at the same time, they're getting efficient at killing them. 2, especially the older corpses, the ones that have been around since the beginning, more or less, they are not doing well. They are barely able to shamble at this point, so there is a shelf life to these zombies. They are, even though they are, somewhat animated, they are not, they can't heal themselves, and they are continuing to deteriorate. And, the zombie that you saw with Carol, that had gotten wrapped up in her wires and she killed. I mean, if you look at that one, it was barely holding itself together. And you're seeing more and more of those. So I kind of believe that while there technically is not a cure at this point, as long as the humans don't kill each other off, and they have a chance of at least clearing out enough that zombies aren't going to be an issue anymore. And because they do know that if someone dies.
Let's see if anyone dies. I mean, people die every day. People die every day. And not all of them have communities where there's someone there that can kill them.
Right. But if, considering they have gotten adept at handling hordes of them, and an individual showing up here and there isn't going to make them pause too much, I don't believe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Their biggest threat at this point is not zombies, because they've gotten good at countering the zombies.
Yeah. But I mean, you have enough wars like this with enough groups, and I mean, you're just killing everybody off.
Right. So, but it's warfare with the other humans that's going to be their undoing. If they cannot stop what they're doing, they will end up exterminating themselves.
Yeah.
There will be nothing left to save, because, you have to have people.
You have to have people to have kids, right? You need men and women to have kids.
Yeah.
So
And Carl brought up, something that you and I had talked about last season, and that was, you can't, no matter what this plan is, you can't just unilaterally kill everyone in Negan's group. Because, again, we need people. You can't just kill everyone. Does Negan deserve to die? Yes. But at the same time, and there was even that little bit of an exchange between the king and, I can't remember his name, but the Negan's, head honcho there at the kingdom. And even he's starting to have some doubts about how they're doing things, but he's too afraid to make any changes.
Yeah.
And he's like, I didn't want it to play out this way. I wanted, everything to be fine. And you can even tell that he wasn't happy with the way Negan was doing things, but it has worked. So they are going with what works, but now it is not working. So I think there's going to be more defectors, because not a lot of people are happy with Negan. Negan promised to keep them safe and to keep them fed and give them a place to, to call home. And all those three promises he made to his people have been broken now.
Yeah.
So,
there might be more people defecting, but I think it's going to be a very slow trickle, especially when you have, like, even just looking forward to the next episode, we know he's going back to, what I like to call the garbage pail kids. And you can't trust them as far as you can throw them. You just cannot trust them. You can't.
I know.
And it's like, okay, maybe you'll get some more people from Negan's crew to help you. But I mean, please, Rick, don't be an idiot again. Like, you can negotiate with her and think you're going to get something, but that should not be your plan, you know?
No, she should, yeah, because they're very unpredictable. Mm-hmm. Well, that, and at the very end of the episode, because along with the visions of the bright future that was Carl's, we have been seeing these images of Rick looking very haggard and the rainbows, lighting across his eye or his face. And at the very end of this episode, you see him, which looks like he's been shot or stabbed or hurt, injured, almost actually in the exact same spot that Carl was from the zombie. Mm-hmm. And underneath the tree with the two stained glass, windows. And I don't even know where that is because the windows kind of look like they came from the church, but the church is burned down.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that whole thing is, and something tells me we won't find out what that means until the very end of the season.
Yeah, they're really playing around with, like, the time jumping thing. Like, I'm like, what the heck is going on? So, like, in this episode, we obviously have what was happening present. We have flashbacks to the past as we unfold, from Carl's point of view. And then we had Carl's imagining of what he thinks the future could be. And now we got something else going on.
Yeah, and then the brief glimpse of the future. But that they have been consistently showing, the bright future, and then the scene of Rick burying, when he's going to bury Carl, and then the scene with, him looking up and the rainbow flashes across his face. So that's been consistent since the very beginning of the season. All three of those images have been playing almost every single episode since the beginning.
Right, but all of those when he's the old man, all of those are Carl, right?
No, so the pleasant, happy images are Carl's. Okay, the second image where he's without the lights flashing in his face, where he's looking down, that's him digging the grave for Carl. And then the third image with the ones with the rainbows across his face is the one where it ends with him sitting in that tree with an injury and the glass windows above it. So those are three different timeline things going on. But he's not an
old man in that one, though.
No, he's not. But each of those images have been in every single episode.
Right. But what I was trying to say is all of the visions where Rick was an old man and Judith was older, that was all Carl.
Right. Those were all Carl.
Right. So, I don't know. I just don't like what they're doing right now. It's making me think too hard, and I almost don't like it. I mean, it's a zombie show, guys. It's a zombie show. I'm curious to see what's going to happen after the showrunner changes, because I don't know. Like, right now, today, how I feel about last night's episode, I am not excited how I usually am. I want something else. And all of this, well, what was this? And what's that? And what happened when? And I'm getting confused. I don't like feeling that way with something I'm supposed to be enjoying. So I could be in the minority here or not, because you viewers are dropping off every week. But I feel like something needs to change, and I want to enjoy the second half of this season. So something has to change for me to probably get what I think I should get out of this second half of the season. And I don't know what that is. I don't. But just not all this confusion. It's a little bit much for me.
Now, see, I enjoy shows that make me think. I like trying to figure things out. I enjoy a show more if I don't know what's going on and I have to put some brain power into it, trying to figure it out, because I hate movies and TV shows where, within 10 minutes I'm going, oh, okay, this is the bad guy, this is what happened, and this is the story. I hate that.
Yeah, I don't think
Unfortunately,
that
it happens
simple,
a lot.
But I don't like feeling confused.
Yeah, but you see, that happens to me a lot. So I get a little disappointed in a lot of what I watch. So
yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
But I kind of enjoyed the whole, now that we've had the reveal, with Carl, and we find out that was his visions. Then I started kind of doing the mental review of all last season. I'm like, oh, okay, now it made me like it more. And, and now we've got the present, which is right now is, Rick digging the grave. And then we have the one future image left, and that's him sitting underneath the tree. Yeah. So with an injury very similar at least in um, where it's at to what happened to Carl, and
Yeah.
same side and everything else. So I don't know. I'm kind of, I don't think he's been bit. My guess is it's probably, my guess is a wound from Lucille.
Maybe. Yeah.
I think that they have won. I think, but you know how he is with his bat and with Lucille, that he probably got in one or two good hits before he was killed, or got away. It's possible that he could have escaped and ran away to wherever and has lost his people. So I do know in the comics that Negan escapes, and does become a problem several, what would be, seasons down the road.
Yeah.
But for right now, I don't. Not that they necessarily have to follow the comics, because otherwise Carl would still be alive.
Right. And I mean, technically, Sadiq could fill that role. Maybe. You never know. Maybe. I mean, he could be the new moral compass for the group. That could happen.
And it turns out that he is a resident he was a resident doctor. So, he's not quite a doctor, but he's really close.
He's really close.
He could still go in on surgery and see patients and stuff like that. He just usually had an actual physician to depend on. But they still do actually still have a doctor, and he's coming back with
you're an MD when you're a resident. You are an MD. You're just practicing still, basically.
Right. So as far as polishing up his skills, they do have an actual doctor that's coming back with the father. So, they will now have two actual doctors. So that'll be good.
Yes. Now, this is a little bit kind of off topic, but I've got to know if you've heard this or not. Did you know that Lauren Cohen, a.k.a. Maggie, does not have a re-signed contract with The Walking Dead?
No, I had not heard that.
Her contract is up. And I also found out that she has right now secured a ABC pilot. It is supposed to be I think it's supposed to be a spy thriller. So I can't remember the name of it right now, but she has secured a pilot. So when pilot season comes around, either it's going to be picked up or not. So and the fact that she has not re-signed with The Walking Dead could mean a whole lot of things. Right.
I hope if they kill off Maggie, I hope at least the baby makes it. I would like to think that there's something left in this world of Glenn and Maggie. That it's not a complete loss.
I'm feeling scared for The Walking Dead. I mean, they're losing. Okay, like hypothetically, let's say, there's still time for her to resign and come back, right?
Right.
But let's say she doesn't resign and she's like, I'm going to go with the ABC thriller, and that's just it. It got picked up. I'm done with The Walking Dead. We've already lost Sasha. We've lost Carl. I mean, we're losing more and more people, and now Morgan is like going to be gone. I'm not sure what this show, if it can hold up with, the headliners that people are accustomed to seeing every week gone.
Yeah. Well, then again, I mean, throughout the seasons, I mean, they've had some major shakeups. We lost, a whole bunch of people, with the whole war of attrition with the governor, and, we lost a whole bunch of people in second season, and, so we have lost major characters, in batches even, throughout the season, or throughout the, all the length of this. So, and sometimes we were like, oh no, the show can't survive. And yet it's done okay. It's brought in new characters. It's used that vacuum to bring in new interests and new people and new groups. So, and I am almost positive at this point that they are going to be bringing in, the Lakeshore people. So, we're going to have a whole bunch.
We haven't seen the end of them. That's for
sure.
Oh,
yeah. And, so, we're going to have an influx of new characters with them. And, I think that there's going to be a little bit more spotlighting on the people from the kingdom, which they really haven't had too much other than, the king and his bodyguard. Those were pretty much the two that they really concentrated on when it came to the kingdom. But I think now that they're starting to gather all the groups together and bring them all together, and, Dwight is still there, and they're kind of feeling, I don't want to say bad for him, but I think he might end up not being killed at this point because he is useful. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's a whole lot of things going on, and there is going to, because they are still at war with Negan. There's going to be even more attrition of various characters, but again, we're bringing in new ones, so it's hard to say. And of course, with the Negan's people, I do believe at some point most of Negan's followers will end up being split among the other groups.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have even more new characters coming in. So even though we're losing people, we're also gaining, quite a few, actually.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm really curious to see how it all plays out. And especially, I almost just want to jump to the season finale and then jump into next season. I am so desperate to see how this new person guides the boat. I really want to see what the change is. I'm really anxious to see what's next for them. I just want to see. Like, give me a clue. I'm having a hard time settling in right now. Maybe next week I'll feel better. But like right now in this moment, I'm struggling, man. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm glad that they gave Carl this episode. He is, aside from Rick, has been the longest running character on this show. He was there in the very first scene, and we have followed him through this entire thing. So I think he deserved to have an episode.
He did.
And I liked the fact that he was finally, he had talked to his dad about how he felt and what he saw, but Rick has been very resistant to it, and you could see that in his response to Saeed. No, not right now, not our problem, not, people have to wait, we've got our own stuff going on, and Carl didn't see it that way. And but with Carl's death, you could see that he's kind of gone, okay, I see your vision, and I am going to now work towards this. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to, I don't think this time it's going to crush him. I think it's going to motivate him to try and be the person that Carl saw him as, whether he is or not.
Yeah, at least for a while anyway.
Yeah.
At least for a while.
Well, and I think with Michonne there, because him and, Carl and Michonne had a really close relationship.
Yeah.
And, and I think that Michonne will keep Rick steady. Yeah. No, you need to be the man your son saw you as, not the person that's easy to slide into. You have to be the person to make him proud. And I think that's going to be Rick's motivating factor at this point, to try and live up to the image his son gave him, and shared with him. So I think we're going to see a lot of changes in Rick's, but I don't think it's going to be the crazy Rick. I think there's going to be a new balance to him.
It's not going to be crazy Rick, and it's not going to be depressed Rick. He's going to, like I said earlier, I agree. I think this is going to level him out, at least for a while, until something else crazy happens. But this is going to level him, and maybe I think it's going to
make him more compassionate.
Yeah.
Which is something that he has not had a lot of. He's had care for his people, direct people, and his kids, and his group, but that really hasn't extended out beyond, his core group. And I think that's one of the things that, with Carl's passing, I think the compassion that he used to have for people, as a general concept, is going to reemerge.
Yeah. Just don't have compassion for Negan. Let's not get crazy. Let's not get crazy.
No, there are limits, okay? Yeah. and I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they're going to end it with Negan being dead or him escaped and off to parts unknown. But I don't think that they're going to let him continue on. And I think like I said, I think that as in the next couple of seasons, what we're going to see is more and more defectors from Negan's group, because especially among the workers, he can't keep them together anymore. He doesn't have a place to contain them. He can't provide for them. He can't protect them, as they have come to expect. He can't even give them a home at this point unless he takes over one of the other settlements, and they destroyed Alexandria, which was just incredibly stupid. Yes, let's destroy the one place that has power and water.
I know.
So
that's, yeah.
I mean, that
I
was
get
bad.
it.
If I had been Negan just losing my home, I would have just moved all my people in there. We're home, and moved
That's
them on into the
again,
house.
hashtag petty. He's a little petty
Yeah,
right now.
he
So,
is. But then again, I would have been forward thinking. Wait a minute, they have running water and lights. I'll take
hmm
it. They had there in Alexandria. He could have moved all of his people in there, and just made up camp, which would have made it really hard for Rick's group to get out and stuff. But if I had been Negan, that's what I would have done. You destroyed our home. We are taking yours.
yeah, that would have made sense instead of just destroying it. But, they do a lot of things that don't make a lot of
Yeah.
sense. So,
I can say though, from a person point of view, people tend to be petty, and I can see this as a normal human reaction. Their home has been destroyed. They're not thinking about later on. They're thinking about what do you mean I have to wait 5 days? I'm mad now, kind of
yeah.
mentality.
But that says a lot about the kind of leader he is. Like, you can't think
Mhm.
you can't think one step ahead, dude. You have a bunch of people you're supposed to be quote unquote protecting. You can't think one step ahead.
Right. Which is unfortunate for Negan's people. But I think, again, the destruction of Alexandria will be playing a big role because, again, he has nowhere to take his people.
It's
Their
going to
main
level the
compound.
ground. It's going to level the playing field a little bit, at
Yeah,
least for Rick's side,
right. Because the satellite station is gone. It's been destroyed.
Yeah.
And their main compound destroyed. And they don't, even if they can't take over Alexandria because they've
It's gone.
pretty much gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
And so all they have left is maybe the kingdom. But I kind of believe because almost all the people from the kingdom did escape, and they're at Carol's cottage. They'll just go back and take back over the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
They could do it.
They
got
could
the high
because
wall.
they killed everyone.
Right. It's completely empty. All their supplies are there.
Yep.
And everything else. And again, now that Negan has lost his base of operation, all their food, all their supplies, other than anything they have taken with them, is gone.
Mm-hmm.
So his entire structure is now basically hanging on his force of personality, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, we'll see how strong his personality is. I mean, just looking at the little preview, I'm like, oh goodness, he's still angry, acting like a bitter kid. I mean, okay,
Yep.
so that's still happening. So,
oh yeah, and that's how he's reacted to everything. He's either grandiose or he's pissed off, and there is no in between for him.
yeah, that's going to be his downfall. Like, he's like stumping his kid like a little petulant child. And, they're going to get the best of you while you're doing all that moaning and groaning.
Yeah, and he's still pretty salty that he got hit by his own bat too.
Yeah, of course he is.
He is real. I think that may have offended him more than anything else. The fact that he has been hit by his own bat.
Oh, for shame. Oh well, he'll get over it or he won't, and he'll just die.
Yep. Yep. And I'm pretty sure next episode, this next coming episode is going to be centered on the Lakeside people. I'm pretty sure it's going to be predominantly on that side.
The Lakeside or the trash people? I know I know Rick's going to see the trash people again.
Yeah.
So
No,
I
I think
Oceanside is going to be in that episode.
I think so.
Huh? I don't. Unless I missed something, I don't remember seeing any clips of Oceanside.
They had a couple of real fast clips, and that was with Enid,
Okay.
and it was her standing with, I can't remember who it was she went there with, standing in a field going, "I'm really sorry."
Okay. Well, maybe. Yeah. They do need their help. They do need it.
Mm-hmm. And so I do believe that it will. That's where they're going next, is to Oceanside.
Well, let's see how it goes. I really hope that I like next week's more than I like this week. I mean, I don't know why. It just didn't reside with me like most of the episodes do. I don't know why this one didn't. I can't really explain it. It just didn't, for some reason, connect with me.
You just didn't like Carl. That's the problem.
No, I've never really complained about Carl. Not really. Not in the grand scheme of things. I kind of was like, Carl's Carl,
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I mean, I think, I don't know. It made me very sad because I have been looking forward to continuing to watch him grow into this leader that I thought he could have been. So I think I'm feeling a lot of disappointment with that. It will help Rick, I think, in the end. I think it will help the group in the end, and I think it's going to give them an advantage over Negan. I don't know how much of one, but I do think it's going to have some bearing in how things go with Negan. But I can't say that I'm not disappointed that he's gone.
R.I.P. Carl. R.I.P.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a little song, a little Walking Dead song. Psych, we don't have rights.
Sorry.
All right, so I guess that's it. Let's wrap this thing up. Are we done talking about episode 9?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us, guys. For those of you that are listening live, thank you so much. We appreciate you. And we will see you guys here again on Monday. So take care. Catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed today's The Walking Dead special live episode and you would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review. You can follow both myself and Lisa on Twitter. Please follow the Shelf Edition podcast on Spreaker, the only place where you can listen live and get broadcast notifications so that you never miss a live episode. Most importantly, you can share this podcast with friends and family that enjoy The Walking Dead. Thank you for listening, and until next time, happy viewing.